My name is Mark Thompson. As an author, I would be best known for my 1987 book, the first of, I think, 8 I've done. It was called Gay Spirit, Myth and Meaning. And in 1987, it was really the first book to really talk about all of the various ways and permutations that we gay people could come to spirit.
Well, obviously, my name is Malcolm Boyd. I wrote a true bestseller with 1 million copies in print, and it was called Are You Running With Me, Jesus? And it came out in 1965.
And I'm very impressed with my partner of 30 years. Throughout my life, I always knew I was gay, and I never had any problems with it. I mean, I had a gay brother, and we would talk about it a lot, and we said, well, this is cool. I was born in 1952, so this was the 50s and 60s, and I grew up in Carmel, California, and started working as a reporter from the time I was a very little, just as a kid. I worked on the Carmel Pinecone, which is California's oldest continuous community newspaper. So I went, from there to college and then to San Francisco State in the early 70s, where I immediately came out as a gay activist. And I was immediately offered a job by The Advocate. I was a feature writer. And so I worked for The Advocate for, until '84. I've contributed directly or indirectly to at least 500 issues of The Advocate. When I interviewed Christopher Isherwood, right at the end of the interview, he said something very profound to me that I remembered. He said, we were talking about the woundedness of gay people and why it is, how we can fix that. And he said the problem there is that if you have not been loved, then you don't know how to love, and you feel that to be loved is to be betrayed. And in love, then you end up betraying others. The second thing that someone said to me that really registered is when I interviewed Harry Hay in 1979. It was for the 10th anniversary Stonewall issue of The Advocate. And he took great pains to explain to me how being gay, up until this very recent time, that there was no such thing as gay people. I was kind of using the word, this is the gay pride issue, and he said, well, wait a minute, let's back up. We didn't have the word gay back then. There was the word homophile or the word homosexual, which meant that you weren't really a complete human being in your own right, but rather you were some deviant or perverted, broken mirror or aspect of the heterosexual norm. People forget that being gay then was also considered to be a part of the sexual revolution, and just not a revolution of lifestyle or ideas. So there was a lot of sexuality happening in many different forms. And who knew that just within a decade, this awful virus.
It came upon a group of people who really had perhaps no way to understand history and their own part in it.
The Bay Area was so AIDS-stricken, and so many of my friends were dying at a very rapid rate, some of them literally in the streets. People would get the disease very quickly, lose their jobs. There was no AIDS care, there was no disability. People were literally, all of their possessions were being thrown into dumpsters. The non-gay community, as well as I think aspects of the gay community, has this willful ignorance not to remember that this was our Holocaust, and it came with a terrible fell swoop. And I lost 3 partners, one right after another, just died. And I'm sure that was around the time I contracted the virus, probably through one of them. So I can tell the stories, and I can tell the 20-year-old kids today that if you're playing around and not using safe sex, you are an idiot.